Hi and welcome to OCEANIA Weekly. I'm Stephanie Greenfield. White supremacist flyers have been dropped in Tauranga mailboxes, leaving residents appalled and police investigating, Radio New Zealand reports. The flyer, headlined "It's Alright to be White," points readers to a website of an extremist group that promotes white supremacy. The ideology of the group, which the Bay of Plenty Times has chosen not to name, was defined as neo-Nazi by the Southern Poverty Law Centre in the United States. Otuamoetai resident Marge said she was appalled to find the flyer in her mailbox last week. Her neighbours also received the flyer, but no one has seen who delivered it. The spokeswoman said police were assessing the report and urged anyone who may have found similar material to contact them on 105. Saturday is World Oceans Day, with governments and organisations across the globe celebrating our seas and condemning the problem of plastics in them. Supermarket company Foodstuffs is hoping to stop some of the litter flow by fitting its car park drains with litter traps. A trial program will fit stormwater traps into drains in Foodstuffs supermarket car parks across the North Island, catching litter before it enters the water. The UN estimates 13 million tonnes of plastic leaks into the ocean every year. Associate Environment Minister Eugene Sage said the biggest culprits are soft plastics like food wrappers and cigarette butts. The 15th Pacific Music Awards have wrapped up after a high-spirited evening of celebrating the Pacific music industry and its top talents at the Vodafone Event Centre in Auckland on the 23rd of May.
And the winner at number 1, Kings with Don't Worry About It. Is Here to Stay by General Fire.
Furious Waiheke residents have demanded ferry company Fuller's to prioritise them after what they say has been years of neglect. More than 250 people packed the Mora Community Hall on the island for a public meeting about the ferry's shortcomings. Last month, 18 ferry services were cancelled and 43 delayed. Auckland Transport and Fuller's were both represented at the meeting, but locals had little patience for planned speeches, shouting at them to answer questions. People at the meeting want cheaper fare prices, a better locals passenger lane, and local authority oversight of Fuller's. Thousands of Japanese women have joined a social media campaign against rules for what kind of clothing is acceptable at work. The campaign also rejects expectations that women wear high heels in the workplace. While many Japanese companies may not exactly require female employees to wear high heels, many women do so because of tradition and social expectations. According to the World Economic Forum's Gender Equality Ratings, Japan finished 110th place out of 149 countries. Until recently, Japanese businessmen were expected to wear neckties at work. However, that has changed since the government launched a campaign in 2005 to persuade companies to turn down air conditioners and reduce electricity use. North Korean authorities have banned imports of Chinese pork as an African swine fever epidemic rages north of the Yalu River border between the two countries. According to the latest update from the UN Food and Agriculture Organization, China has seen 138 African swine fever outbreaks since August 2018. And more than 1 million pigs have been culled since the initial outbreak in Liaoning province, which borders North Korea. Radio Free Asia reports North Korea's Ministry of Agriculture confirmed the country's first outbreak in Chagang province on the 23rd of May. South Korea's Ministry of Unification has proposed discussions on how the two Koreas can work together to stop further spread of the disease. The United States is providing more drones to the Philippines, which will be used in part to monitor the Chinese presence in the disputed South China Sea, Filipino sources reports. The US Department of Defense last week announced the contract award for 34 Scan Eagle unmanned aerial vehicles on behalf of the Philippines, Malaysia, Indonesia and Vietnam at a total price tag of $47.9 million. The Philippines already acquired 6 Scan Eagle drones in 2018 after receiving intelligence support from the US. The intel assistance helped erode an anti-US posture taken by President Rodrigo Duterte's administration, a senior Philippine defense source told Benia News, an RFA-affiliated online news service. The US Department of Defense has included Taiwan as a list of countries to work with for its missions around the world in its recent release Indo-Pacific Strategy Report. This is an apparent about-face in Washington's One China policy to recognize Taiwan as an independent country and is seen as the Trump administration's move to step up the pressure on China by making use of the country's diplomatically sensitive issue. Since it normalized bilateral ties with China in 1979, the United States has maintained a One China principle, not acknowledging Taiwan as a country. Therefore, involving Taiwan in a list of countries in the government's official report, practically aimed at China, is an unexpected move. Foreign Minister of Korea Kang Kyung-hwa has held no meetings to discuss US demands to join a boycott of Chinese tech giant Huawei. Instead, she went to Slovakia to attend an international meeting and commented on search efforts for the victims of the pleasure boat tragedy in Hungary. One diplomatic source said Japan, the UK and other foreign countries quickly came up with responses to the Huawei dispute, but Seoul doesn't seem to realise the severity of the situation. US Ambassador Harry Harris delivered a speech at a conference at the Korean branch of Facebook and warned local businesses not to be enticed by short-term cost-cutting gains or face very big risks if they select a supplier that cannot be trusted. According to Japanese sources, South Korea is quietly staying out of a multinational crackdown on North Korea's illegal ship-to-ship transfers of banned goods. A Japanese Foreign Ministry spokesman said there is no record that South Korea deployed an aircraft or ship to Japan for monitoring and surveillance activities against North Korea's illicit maritime activities. Australia, Canada, France, Japan, New Zealand, the UK and the US have been trying to catch North Korean ships smuggling goods into the East China Sea and nearby waters since early last year. The Japanese Foreign Ministry updates the details of the multinational operations on its website, but South Korea is never on the list. The South Korean Navy is cracking down on the North's illegal ship-to-ship transfers and joining international activities within its own area of operations. Samsung is downsizing the workforce at its last remaining smartphone plant in China due to sluggish sales and the rising labour costs. Chinese economic newspaper Caixin reported that Samsung is taking applications for voluntary redundancy from staff at a plant in Huichong, Guangdong province until the 14th of June, but the redundancy scale is not known. Samsung confirms the reports and say that they are trying to adjust production and reduce personnel for efficiency and management. The Huichou plant is now Samsung's only plant in China, which was opened in 1992 and started producing smartphones in 2006. As of 2017, it employed some 6,000 workers and produced more than 62 million smartphones. Due to struggling sales in China, the Korean electronics giant Samsung shut its plant in Shangjing in April last year and another one in Tianjin in December.
An exultant President Trump taking victory laps on Twitter. Quote, "Everyone very excited about the new deal with Mexico. There is now going to be great cooperation between Mexico and the USA, something that didn't exist for decades." In Tijuana, Mexican President López Obrador hailed a trade war averted.
Celebramos el importante acuerdo de ayer.
We celebrate the important agreement because it was a very difficult situation and would have been very awkward applying tariffs to some U.S. products. The same measures, commercial restrictions, similar to the ones that would be imposed on Mexican exports.
A ciertas mercancías de Estados Unidos.
The accord calls for Mexico to better patrol its southern border with Guatemala and to hold asylum-seeking migrants while their cases are heard in the United States. In a statement, Republican Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell said it was good news that U.S. families won't be hit with the price increases that would have resulted from new tariffs on imports from Mexico. McConnell also urged more funds for operations along the U.S.-Mexico border, accusing Democrats of dragging their heels and engaging in political gamesmanship. Democrats, meanwhile, say Trump's own actions have worsened the migrant crisis and that the deal with Mexico was no masterstroke of White House diplomacy.
The president has completely overblown what he purports to have achieved. These are agreements that Mexico had already made, in some cases, months ago. By and large, the president achieved nothing except to jeopardize the most important trading relationship that the United States of America has. There are 6 million jobs in this country that depend on U.S.-Mexico trade.
For Central American migrants, a perilous journey to the United States is expected to become even more difficult.
Everyone should think about the reasons that cause us to migrate and leave our families, our country, and come to another country. Instead of closing doors, they should give us an opportunity to demonstrate that we are people who want a job. The only thing we want is a better future for our children and our families.
Some say they will not be deterred.
You can close the border. You can build 1,000 walls, and 1,000 walls will be crossed by land, by air. They're always going to get in. Donald Trump can do whatever he wants.
Migrant arrivals at the U.S.-Mexico border are surpassing 100,000 a month, including record numbers of families and unaccompanied minors. Michael Bowman, VOA News, Washington.
Quand il me prend dans ses bras, Chiawa, Sewa, Kanashi, tú siempre me respondes, quizás, quizás, quizás. My phone, the sweetest one, me or my own, son of a gun will have big fun on the bayou. Et je sais que ça, et je sais quoi, il sera pas jeté aussi.
Thank you for joining us at Oceania Weekly. I'm Stephanie Greenfield, and I'll see you next week.